My name's Anita Parker. I'm one of the educational developers at the Center for Teaching and Learning, and I see some familiar names and faces and unfamiliar names and faces. So whether we know each other or we haven't met yet, welcome to this week's webinar. The instructor role as a facilitator in an online or blended course. I'm going to talk for about 15 minutes. I have a 15-minute presentation ready for you. That's why it's a 15-minute webinar. In this webinar, we're going to focus on how you as an instructor can step away from the lectern and instead focus on scaffolding student engagement and active learning in your online or blended course. My intention today is to provide you with ideas and strategies for maximizing student motivation and self-direction in their learning. Many great instructors are great lecturers. In 1994, I was a student in a second-year mammalogy course while I was on exchange at the University of New South Wales. Mammalogy, it's the study of mammals. And because I was in Australia, I learned about lots of really interesting creatures. It was truly, truly a fantastic course. The instructor, Dr. Archer, was captivating. He was an entertaining and engaging public speaker. His slides were full of these laugh out loud meme-like images, although I'm fairly certain that memes didn't exist in the mid-1990s. Dr. Archer was obviously impactful because here I am almost 30 years later, Googling him and mentioning him in our webinar today. So my point being that many great instructors use lecturing as a means of delivery for course content. However, here we are in a time of an accelerated move to online and blended learning. It's not a new teaching circumstance, but I'm sure you can agree, definitely an accelerated one. I did get my first email account in 1994. It was nothing like it is today. But online learning or really distance learning rather back then was a whole lot different than it is today. The means of communication between an instructor and student was primarily paper-based through the mail. Maybe if you were lucky, you'd get a CD-ROM or a VHS tape in the mail. And social presence could be amplified really just by a telephone call. Our educational and communication technologies, and therefore our potential to teach students who aren't with us in the physical classroom, have come a long, long way. And usually, maybe not always, but potentially these translate into positive impacts on the student experience and learning. We now know that when a global pandemic shuts down a university overnight, taking a 100% face-to-face course, lecture-style class, and transforming it into a Zoom class can work as a temporary quick fix. But it's not optimal or sustainable. Pedagogically, as a learning experience for students, there are better, more effective, more sustainable instructional strategies than having a screen filled with empty Zoom boxes. These strategies require a sage on the stage to step away from the lectern and take on the role of a facilitator. As a facilitator, the instructor scaffolds the student experience and learning through the course. But just because you're stepping away from the lectern doesn't mean you're stepping away from your course and letting it just simmer on its own. For the remainder of the webinar, I'm going to be rooting it in this article by Martin Budrani and Kumar, 2019, entitled Award-Winning Faculty Online Teaching Practices, Roles and Competencies. And let's add the words "and blended" in here because everything that the authors found in their interviews with faculty across the United States applies to blended learning as well. According to Martin et al., online and blended instructors take on 5 different roles that I have listed here. These are the ones that I pulled out from the interviews: facilitator, course or content designer, course or content manager, subject matter expert, and mentor. To me, that list of words can be better represented like this to show their relationships. The instructor, that's you. You're a subject matter expert. You're facilitating and mentoring the student experience and learning through a course. And this primarily involves you as a designer, creating and curating content, and as an implementer / manager. You are implementing course activities, and there's lots of on the side managerial and administrative duties. Let me take a short theoretical tangent here. According to DC and Ryan's theory of self-determination, students, everyone, really have 3 basic needs. Relatedness, the one at the top, that's a sense of belongingness and connectedness with others. Competence, that's a sense of mastery over things that are important to you, and autonomy, which is a sense of responsibility and choice in your personal circumstances. And when these 3 needs are met, intrinsic motivation and self-directedness are the result. So as a facilitator of an online or blended course, how do you attend to these 3 needs so that your students are motivated and self-directed? One more little theoretical piece. According to the learning theory of constructivism, knowledge is created through meaningful experiences and reflection. For students to construct knowledge, they require active, authentic tasks that have them thinking, problem solving, and acting like they will in their future careers. As the facilitator of an online or blended course, how do you help your students construct knowledge? In Martin et al.'s category of the role of the instructor as a course or content designer, what do you need to create and curate? The first element that you want to build and communicate to your students are your course learning outcomes. Student buy-in and engagement can increase if they understand your framework. It tells them that the activities and assessments have been designed with outcomes in mind. This diagram you're seeing here, that is the backward design process from Wiggins and Matigi. I have the reference at the end for you. Number 1, identify desired results. There's your outcomes. Then you do number 2, which is determine acceptable evidence. Those are your assessments. And those inform number 3, plan learning experiences and instruction. And those are your activities. Also, in terms of creating and curating content, what kinds of pre-recorded videos can you provide for students? I know many, if not most, if not all of you here today are already doing this, so this is nothing new. The obvious one is content videos, concepts, or applications. This is the actual stuff that you want students to learn. You can create these yourself, like transforming your lectures into learning artifacts, essentially. And you can also curate videos that other people have created as well. So as a facilitator, you are a video creator / curator. Also, how about videos for course logistics? These can be really informal screencasts, a way for you to support students through a course throughout the semester, such as a Start Here video that students watch on the first day of class. And you can refer to your Start Here video or Welcome to the Course video, whatever you want to call it, throughout the course. Students might have a question, and then here is the scalability of your workload and your efforts, because you can say, well, I did talk about that in the Start Here video. Let me refer you back to that. How about a Monday hello or a Friday debrief, a way to let students know what's coming up in the week, what has been covered in a week. These kinds of low-tech, quick videos can be a primary way of communicating with students throughout a course, especially in an asynchronous one. They're easy to do. CTL can help you out with that, and students really appreciate them. Readings, again, nothing new with readings. See, you already are content creators. You're already taking on the role of a facilitator. Readings can include pieces that you've written or that someone else has written, such as a handout, a blog, an article in a peer-reviewed journal, book chapter, etc. I'm sure you already have a well-established or maybe an evolving reading list for your course. By the way, the University of Alberta Course Materials and Reading List Service, it's a really easy to use platform if you haven't thought about it before, to build, to maintain your reading list for a course, and it seamlessly integrates into your eClass site from one term to the next. And finally, you want to build and maintain a solid eClass site. eClass, it's an LMS or learning management system. You are a learning manager. So here is your learning management system. While it functions well as a Dropbox of stuff, it is really capable of so much more. Think of your eClass site as your classroom. It's whether your course is 100% online, blended, or even if it's 100% face-to-face, you and your students use it together. It's your portal, your doorway, it's the index, it's the bones, whatever. Pick an adjective that resonates for you. This is a place where you and your students come together. A well-built site where you take advantage of eClass's robust features enables you to take on the role of a facilitator because it can provide students with the autonomy to be self-directed and therefore motivated learners. It can provide students with the means to construct knowledge instead of trying to learn passively. And it can provide you with the scalability of your efforts and workload, not necessarily a reduced workload when you're in the process of building your great eClass site, but definitely those efforts can be front-loaded and scalable over time. For ideas and support about designing and implementing your course, you can visit the CTL website. And this is our Teaching and Learning Online self-study course. And this course itself is an example of a well-built eClass site. So instructors take the course and learn how to build and design their course, but they also become students of this self-directed course, and they see eClass being used to its full potential. And of course, you can access our library of resources at your fingertips 24/7. So as a facilitator, here you go. Here's your creating and curating of content that you do before a class starts and also as a class is going through the semester. Next, in Martin et al.'s category of course and content manager, what do you need to do to implement your course activities? What are the other teaching, administrative, mentoring, managerial duties required? You are an expert in your field. That's what brings you to teaching in your program at the University of Alberta. In the real or the virtual classroom, students get the best of what you have to offer when they're taking part in active, authentic tasks. And have a look at the list here. Here's where they get your modeling, scaffolding, feedback on activities and assessments, clarification, debriefing, extension. This is just a list of words. It's a list of verbs where you take your discipline-specific content and you breathe life into it. So you can see your course is not simmering on its own if you step away from the lectern. There is just so much that you are doing. For example, students are discussing a case study with their peers. You're circulating the room, real or virtual room, and you overhear a discussion. You recognize that they're a bit off track, and in the moment, you ask this small group a probing question, and it serves to nudge them back on track. For example, students miss a step in an experiment and their data is flawed. You come along at the right moment and scaffold their discovery of this mistake and facilitate their thought process about how to correct it. So as a facilitator, what do you do to manage your course? What happens outside of class time? Again, this is a list from the paper, the Martin et al. Paper. And really, it's a list of ways that you communicate with students. Maybe you do some of these, maybe you do all of them. It's not that you have to, if you want to find one way that you really like to communicate with students and go for it, like at the announcement forums or an FAQ forum, or maybe you do pick more than one of them. These are all good ways. Office hours, real or virtual. How to learn strategies. Remember, we are teaching students stuff, but we're teaching them how to be students, how to learn how to learn. Feedback, providing rich feedback that's meaningful on their assessments, providing clear, succinct instructions for assignments so they know exactly what's expected of them. This could be a rubric or a sample of excellent student work that you've curated from a previous term. And then the final bullet, being responsive to student needs and teachable moments. You're not letting this course simmer. If something comes up, you see it as a teachable moment and you work with that in the time. Remember, you are the subject matter expert. Students are fortunate to have you supporting them while they become self-directed learners and while they construct knowledge. Martin et al. Also lists competencies required by an instructor in order to fulfill this complex role of a facilitator. And here they are. Here, again, these are from those interviews they did with faculty. Technical skills, willingness to learn, knowledge of how people learn, content expertise, course design skills, and how to assess student learning. And to me, this looks like a to-do list for professional development or ongoing self-reflection as an instructor. Or maybe this is a wish list of supports that you require from your faculty or department leadership. It can be challenging to step away from the lectern. There's a lot of security behind the lectern to instead scaffold student engagement and active learning when they may or may not be with you in the physical classroom, to instead focus on maximizing their motivation and their self-directedness in their learning. And there we go. I hope this short webinar has provided you maybe with some ideas and strategies, or at the very least, just some context to the teaching circumstances that we happen to be in, where you really are taking on more of the role of a facilitator as you design, you implement, and you manage your online or blended course. Here's my reference list. There's the Martin et al. Article. If you catch it here, great. If not, you can email me, or this will be included in the video. And also there's the Wiggin and Matigie's book on the backward design process, starting from the learning outcomes and then working backward to determine your assessments and your activities for there.